Welcome to The Explainer. If you're looking to absolutely master the foundations of the Elizabethan age, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're flipping the script a bit. Instead of our usual deep dive, we're turning this into a dynamic, interactive mock exam. I'm going to be your quiz master, reading the questions and giving you a split second to lock in your guess. And then I'll instantly swap hats to be your history guide, breaking down the fascinating context behind every single correct answer. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's test your knowledge. Okay, here is our battle plan for today. We're conquering this in 3 distinct sections. First up, we'll look at the massive cultural shifts in historical and cultural context. Then, we track the literal birth of the English stage in development of the drama. And finally, we'll wrap up with the golden age of verse in Edmund Spenser and poetry. Let's do this.
All right, Section 1, Historical and Cultural Context. We're looking at the bedrock of one of history's absolute greatest literary eras.
Here's question 1. The springtide of Elizabethan literature is defined as which period? Is it A, 1558 to 1579, B, 1579 to 1603, C, 1603 to 1625, or D, 1500 to 1558? Lock it in. All right, the correct answer is A. You see, historians actually divide the Elizabethan era into 3 parts. Those first 21 years, from 1558 to 1579, were this absolutely crucial time of preparation. It was the true springtide, right before the literature fully, bloomed.
Moving on to question 2. Which dual historical movements combine to arouse the intellect and the spiritual nature of the Elizabethan age? A, B, C, or D? And the answer is B, the Renaissance and the Reformation. This is a real game changer. The Renaissance woke up people's aesthetic faculties and their intellect, right? Meanwhile, the Reformation stirred up this deep, deep moral earnestness. Boom. Together, they created an absolute powerhouse of creative output. Question 3. What was a primary reason for the intense patriotism reflected in Elizabethan literature? If you guessed C, you nailed it. The defeat of the Spanish Armada. Picture this. It's 1588. There's this massive, terrifying collision with Spain, and the subsequent English victory completely welded the nation together. It sparked this intense, unified pride that just spilled right over into all their writing. Okay, question 4. Why is the period sometimes called the Age of Shakespeare? The correct choice here is B. He was a most characteristic and representative writer. It's really just a long-standing historical convention to name literary periods after their brightest star. It makes it way easier for scholars and for us to track the most important developments of that era. Question 5. What provided the Elizabethan public with easy access to the treasures of ancient literature? The answer is B. Innumerable translations of the classics. I actually love how our source material describes this. It says that every breeze was literally dusty with the pollen of Greece, Rome, and of Italy. Because of all these translations, everyday citizens could suddenly just access these ancient, mind-blowing treasures.
And just like that, we are into Section 2, Development of the Drama. Let's see exactly how the English stage evolved. Question 6. What was the original purpose of miracle plays in England? The answer is B. Believe it or not, these plays were originally written by ecclesiastical authors, specifically designed to instruct the unlettered masses in religion. They were super practical tools, basically used to teach sacred truths to everyday people who couldn't read. Let's look at the very next evolutionary step with question 7. How did morality plays differ from miracle plays? The answer is C. So instead of using real historical figures or sacred Bible narratives, morality plays used personified abstractions of mental and moral qualities, meaning audiences would actually watch characters named Science or Everyman walking around and interacting on stage. Kind of wild, right? Question 8. Which figure from those morality plays is considered the direct forerunner of the Elizabethan stage clown? It is B, the Vice. He was this highly humorous, mischievous incarnation of evil. As the designated fun-maker of the play, he brought some much-needed comic relief to those heavy moral lessons, directly paving the way for Shakespeare's famous jesters. Question 9. What is recognized as the first real English tragedy? The answer is C, Gorboduc. Written by Sackville and Norton back in 1561, this play is a massive, massive milestone. It was the very first English tragedy to use blank verse, and it strictly followed Roman Senecan models. Basically, it officially moved drama away from those morality plays we just talked about and into formal tragedy. Question 10. Conversely, what is recognized as the first real English comedy? Answer B, Royster Doyster. Written by Nicholas Udall around 1550, this play modeled itself entirely after the ancient Latin comedies of Plautus and Terence. It essentially brought classical comic structure to the English stage for the very first time. You guys are doing fantastic so far. We are now seamlessly transitioning into our third and final section, Edmund Spenser and poetry. Time to really delve into the golden age of verse. Question 11. Which 1579 work marks the opening of the golden age of Elizabethan literature? The answer is B. The publication of Edmund Spenser's The Shepherd's Calendar is widely considered by historians as the official starting gun for this era of full literary fruition. Question 12. Spenser's absolute masterpiece, The Faerie Queene, is best described as what type of work? Answer B is the one. It is a didactic romance using allegory. See, Spenser wasn't just telling a fun fantasy story. He was using the romance genre as a Trojan horse to deliver some really profound moral and religious lessons. Let's test your knowledge of that specific allegory with question 13. What do the 12 knights errant represent in The Faerie Queene? The answer is C. They represent the 12 cardinal virtues of Aristotle's philosophy. Each knight literally embodies a specific virtue, like holiness or temperance, and their epic adventures symbolize the daily moral conflicts we all face. Now, question 14 asks about the actual, specific rhyme scheme of the Spenserian stanza. The answer is A. A, B, B, C, B, C, C. Spenser invented this incredibly difficult, highly musical structure himself. It's a 9-line stanza, and that final 9th line is called an alexandrine, meaning it has an extra beat. It just gives each stanza this deeply satisfying, grounded finish. Question 15. What does the historical allegory in The Faerie Queene often refer to? The answer is C. While on the surface it looks like a story about knights and dragons, Spenser cleverly disguised real individuals and institutions from his own time. The narrative is just heavily loaded with commentary on the contemporary political and religious problems of the Elizabethan age. Question 16. Which poet wrote the introduction to A Mirror for Magistrates? The correct answer is B. Thomas Sackville. And why does this matter? Well, because Sackville's contribution is widely considered the absolute finest English poem written in that long, dry gap between Geoffrey Chaucer and Edmund Spenser. Question 17 asks us to define a very specific Elizabethan term, the sonnet sequence. The answer is B. A sonnet sequence is basically a series of sonnets tracing the movements of passion, usually regarding love. Heavily influenced by the Italian poet Petrarch, English writers like Philip Sidney use these to describe the agonizing, beautiful, messy progress of falling in love. And here we are, our final question for today. Question 18. Which 1557 collection of songs and sonnets marks the dawn of the new poetic age? Lock in your final guess. It is C. Tottel's Miscellany. Published just 1 year before Queen Elizabeth actually took the throne, this collection featured the incredibly influential work of Wyatt and Surrey, setting the stage for literally everything we've just discussed today. That brings us to the end of our Elizabethan mock exam. If you liked this explainer, subscribe RK Tuition and don't forget to like and share your friends. But before we go, consider this. If legendary writers like Shakespeare and Spenser were shaped so heavily by the political turbulence and technological shifts of their own time, what kind of literature do you think our current era of rapid change is going to leave behind for history to study? Think about that. Keep studying, and we will see you in the next explainer.